Do you remember those dark rainy nights as a kid? The TV in your room was still running in the background. As you were tucked into a blanket, you just wanted to watch the next exciting episode of SpongeBob. And before you know it, this particular episode you're watching takes a dark turn, with an uncanny atmosphere that somehow didn't feel right for a kid's cartoon. My mission today was simple: dig up the things from your childhood that left a mark. Even if those things weren't in your childhood, let me show you what other people were scared of. So let's take a trip down memory lane and revisit some of the most unexpectedly traumatic moments of growing up in the 2000s. In this iceberg, I attempted to expand on existing charts you have may seen, as I noticed that many entries were missing from those charts. So I hope you made yourself comfy and have something to drink and snack on. By the way, I am Snorky, and join me today to see what's awaiting at the bottom. And special thanks to my seasoned divers coming back to this deep dive. You're the only one keeping this wreck afloat. And for the new ones here, enjoy the ride and let's explore the 2000 childhood trauma iceberg. The Ring. The Ring was a horror movie that defined a generation. Released in 2002, this American remake of the Japanese classic Ringu introduced us to one of the most traumatizing horror icons of the 2000s, Samara. The premise was simple. You watched a cursed VHS tape filled with eerie, distorted imagery, ending up with a shot of a well. Then the phone rings and a voice whispers, 7 days. That's how long you have left to live, and when your time runs out, Samara doesn't just hunt you, she crawls out of your TV. What made The Ring so disturbing wasn't just the jump scares, it was the grainy VHS aesthetic, the slow building dread, and the feeling that something ancient and evil was watching, and getting closer by the minute. For kids growing up in the VHS era, when borrowing tapes for a friend was a thing, the idea of a tape that could summon Samara was terrifying. Samara became a horror icon overnight, and The Ring didn't need much blood or gore. It used atmosphere, silence, and dread to scare a whole generation. SpongeBob outro music. At first I completely misremembered this part. I thought the outro was the scene where SpongeBob pops up in front of you with the Nickelodeon logo behind him and plays his note like a flute. It felt so unnatural and weird to me that it grossed me out, but as I looked it up, I realized that people online were actually mentioning the terrifying outro song. When the end credits lower, a soft, melancholic steel guitar tune fades in, officially titled Hawaiian Train by Kapono Beamer. It's meant to match the tropical, laid-back vibes of Bikini Bottom, but somehow it ends up feeling more like a funeral music for an entire generation of kids. Maybe it's the slow, wavering slides of the guitar, or the visuals that fade out, but there is this eerie sense of loneliness that lingers. There is something quite haunting about a show that is full of chaos and laughter, and then suddenly ending on such a calm, almost sorrowful note. Courage the Cowardly Dog. Among all the wacky cartoons of the early 2000s, like the wacky world of Texas Avery, there was one that stood out by being wacky in a much darker way. Courage the Cowardly Dog. At first glance, it's a simple show about a pink dog trying to protect his elderly owners who live in the middle of nowhere. Sounds wholesome, right? But if you grew up watching it, you know it's anything but. The first show aired on November 12, 1999 and ran for 3 seasons with a total of 52 episodes. Yet in that short time it was remembered for its surreal, eerie and deeply unsettling atmosphere. The animation style mixed traditional cartoons with occasional CGI, but it wasn't just the visuals, but also the themes the show tackled. If you remember that infamous character nicknamed Return the Slab, it's about a spirit that appears at the front doorstep, repeating in a haunting echoing voice, "Return to the slab or suffer my curse."
Return this land.
This entire episode leans hard into supernatural horror, dim lighting, creepy sound design, and unsettling pacing. But there is one more episode I wanna mention, Heads of Beef. You already know that I have some issues with the pigs in horror. Whether it's masked or humanoid pigs, it just gets me. In this episode, Courage visits a run-down diner run by a humanoid pig. The setting is grimy, the lighting is harsh, and there is this thick, greasy atmosphere signaling you that something is very wrong here. When the pig talks, the sound design changes, his voice is distorted, and the lights are flickering. The turning point was when the Courage dog notices something strange about his burger meat, because it has the face of a customer who just walked through the back door. They never explicitly say it's human meat, but it's heavily implied. It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre parody, just animated for kids. For a children's show, Courage the Cowardly Dog went places most cartoons wouldn't dare. Teletubbies. I hated this show with my whole heart, but maybe you love them. Back in 1997, the BBC launched a new children's show called Teletubbies. The show is set in a colorful fantasy land designed for toddlers, featuring 4 goofy characters who didn't speak real words and mostly just giggled. It ran for 9 seasons, aired in over 100 countries, and became a global phenomenon. But here is the thing, if you were just slightly older than the targeted audience, something about this show just felt off. You had these 4 giant costume characters living in a hobbit-like bunker, being watched over by a giant baby-faced son that laughed constantly like some all-seeing surveillance god, and I don't even want to talk about the vacuum cleaner. But there is one special episode that comes to mind when talking about the Teletubbies. The one that featured the segment about the lion and the bear. Instead of the usual nonsense, we got 2 crudely animated cardboard cutouts riding around while making cryptic, echoing statements. The lion literally says things like, "I'm coming to get you," while the bear just spins around in fear with bulging, differently circulating eyes.
Where's the bear?
Even now it looks a bit creepy and surreal. The backlash was so strong that BBC even pulled this episode down, banning it from future airings entirely. Bloody Mary. Okay, be honest, did you try this one? I mean, even I, who didn't grow up in an English-speaking country, tried this one. Bloody Mary was simply everywhere, but did you know about the origin? Well, the legend may be based on real historical figures, like Queen Mary I of England, who earned the nickname Bloody Mary after ordering the executions of hundreds of Protestants. Originally, the ritual was meant to reveal your future spouse, or if you were unlucky, a skull could symbolize early death. Over time, it evolved into a verbal dare in schools, bathrooms, and at sleepovers. For this dare, you will need to stand in front of a mirror, shut the lights, and light a candle. While looking in the mirror, you need to say 3 times Bloody Mary, and supposedly a woman covered in blood would appear in the mirror. But the dim light, the silence, and the tension made saying Bloody Mary for the 3rd time quite stressful. As the legend goes, this woman would scratch your face, drag you into the mirror, or curse you forever. Some schools even banned kids from doing it, which of course only made it more legendary. THX Deep Note. THX story goes back to 1983 when Lucasfilm wanted to make sure that theaters were equipped with a high-end audio before screening Return of the Jedi. To do that, they introduced THX, a quality assurance system for cinema sound, because this sound had a very particular way how they played it. It starts slow, high-pitched, and then it goes deep. And with a proper setup, your whole room would tremble. So there you were, watching something like Toy Story, and suddenly, without a warning, you were hit nothing but blackness, and 3 metallic letters appear on the screen, and a noise coming out from your TV. That sounds like it was from the depths of hell. But because there wasn't a simple explanation before, many kids thought of this ad as a warning siren or something of that nature. The Deepno was created using a computer and a room full of synthesizers. To this day, people on the internet joke about the THS trauma, and the sound remains one of the most iconic and unintentionally terrifying parts of the 2000s. Fruit Gushers commercial. Fruit Gushers were a popular 2000s snack, chewy candy with a liquid-filled center. Even if they were tasty, their commercials were quite unsettling. If you grew up watching TV in that era, chances that you saw one of these bizarre ads were pretty high. The ads were about kids who would eat a gusher and then their heads would violently transform into a fruit. Like a watermelon, a banana, or a giant raspberry. The problem was that the CGI morphing didn't set well with many, but it didn't stop these ads from running constantly during cartoons. And while they were meant to be quirky and funny, the squealing sound effects, the warped faces, and the lack of panic made many kids uncomfortable. The two most notable, I think, were the banana one, but also honorable mention, the segment with the starfish.
This is sort of...
Ew! That doesn't taste like a gusher!
Just because it goos doesn't mean it's gush. Gush.
Coraline. Coraline was released in 2009 with a PG rating, but don't let that fool you. It's a stop-motion animated film directed by Henry Selick, the same mind behind The Nightmare Before Christmas. The story follows Coraline, a curious girl who finds a hidden door in her new house that leads to a perfect parallel world. Her other mother is warm, friendly, and makes her favorite food. Everything seems better until she realizes that something is a bit off, as everyone has buttons for eyes. And soon the other mother asks her if she wants to stay in this perfect world by sewing buttons onto her eyes.
Forever. There's one tiny little thing we need to do.
Just saying this out loud feels wrong. The film takes a sharp turn from physical to what the hell is happening here. Everything happens so fast and the atmosphere becomes heavy with dread. The idea that love can be used as bait and the body horror aspect about sewing buttons onto your eyes was a bit much for a kids movie. Amber Alert. The Amber Alert system, or America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response, was launched in 1996, named after Amber Hagerman, a 9-year-old girl who was abducted and later sadly murdered in Texas. The goal of this Amber Alert was to rapidly distribute information to the public through every means possible: TV, highway signs, news stickers, and later even phones.
An Amber Alert is a media broadcast that allows law enforcement to use the help of the public in finding someone.
As years went by, this spread across the states for a good reason. Now, if you had a phone as a kid and suddenly your phone started to scream at you at full volume in the middle of the night with a rousing buzz sound and a message about some kid being adopted, you did know perhaps what this was fully about, and you could only figure out that some other child was in great danger. It's definitely something that helped many people, and it's a good thing they were around, but it's also clear why they were so scary. It didn't matter if you were in class, asleep, or just minding your own business. You never knew when your phone would go off. Closing logos. Remember watching some goofy Jimmy Neutron episode and you were greeted with this closing logo, a realistic CGI monkey in a cowboy hat turning to the camera and saying,
Hi, I'm Paul.
I don't know, but probably that's how you were greeted if you landed in hell, and that's supposedly how a cartoon show should end in the early 2000s. I guess by giving you a small heart attack with a three-eyed monkey. Most of them were harmless, but still, Classic Cuspo is also a bizarre one. You know, the studio behind Rugrats? The original logo featured a glitched out face with robotic sound, distorted colors and a synthetic voice saying, "Class Picospo, don't ask me why, please."
So what do you want me to say now?
Spirited Away. Spirited Away was released in 2005 by Studio Ghibli and directed by the legendary animator Hayao Miyazaki.
What is it?
Come on, let's go in. I want to see what's on the other side.
At the time, it became the highest grossing film in Japanese history. The story follows a young girl who stumbles in a mysterious abandoned theme park with her parents. Now this is a bit more personal, but I can't be the only one who felt like this. Remember the scene where the parents started eating piles of food meant for the spirits? Yeah, the one scene where they transformed into actual pigs. The scene left me genuinely disturbed. The transformation was horrifying. They would collapse on the floor, grunting and squealing, and their eyes go lifeless and animalistic. Because I was perhaps too young when I watched this, it planted a fear. What if my parents change? What if they never come back? Perhaps it's a bit goofy now, but it was terrifying at the time and it stuck with me for years. Buchbachs. Buchbachs were an acid trip disguised as a toddler show. The show was created by Annie Wood, the same mind behind Teletubbies. It aired in 2003 on PGS and ITTV, targeting preschoolers with focus on movement, shapes and colors, supposedly to promote their physical activity. But much like Teletubbies, it did the opposite to some, because there wasn't any real plot, no dialogue, just bouncing and beaming lights with a character that only communicates through giggles and sound effects. To older kids or adults, Buchbachs felt a bit unsettling. These empty sets, uncanny sounds and hypnotic repetitions made it like a fever dream created for kids. Invader Zim. Dark Harvest definitely stands out in Invader Zim's already bizarre lineup of episodes. The show premiered in 2001 on Nickelodeon, and it was created by Jonan Vasquez, a comic book artist known for his dark and edgy humor, and it felt like the show was never meant to be an average kids cartoon. The plot followed Zim, an alien attempting, and constantly failing, to conquer Earth while pretending to be a human student. The show only lasted for 2 seasons, an episode like Dark Harvest probably explained why. In this infamous episode, Zim becomes paranoid that the school nurse will discover he's not human, so he finds a simple solution by stealing organs from his classmates. He literally rips out their insides and stuffs them into himself just to appear normal. One of the most disturbing moments is the part when an intestine leaps out of his mouth mid-conversation.
I've been working out.
By the end, Zim's body is bloated, lumpy and stuffed with human organs like a grotesque piñata. For a Nickelodeon cartoon, it was shockingly graphic and often considered one of the most disturbing episodes they ever aired. Mr. Meaty.
Alright, out of my way, you spiky rat! Nah, it all began in 1904.
Mr. Meaty is a teen sitcom that centers around 2 lazy teenage boys, Josh Redgrove and Parker Dinkelman, who worked at a fast food restaurant called Mr. Meaty inside a shopping mall. The premise of the whole show is that they would often encounter supernatural and bizarre situations. The show was released on Nickelodeon in 2006, and if you have seen any episode, the first thing to notice how the puppets are looking like. They were hideous, with bulbous eyes, greasy skin and twitchy movements. Most kids watching Nickelodeon at the time were expected SpongeBob, and not those 2 stoner looking guys. The mall setting also felt empty and eerie and weirdly liminal. Even without any horror elements, it gives that vibe, especially the episode about the tapeworm who landed in Parker's body. Again, the creepy animation and just the fact that some worm is inside of you taking control of your moment is disturbing. but how they were battling with the worm, trying to pull out Parker's body, was too much to bear for some. Mr. Mitty was marketed as a comedy, but some say it didn't land that way. The Wiggle Puppets. Another show landed on the list, which somehow looks like the most tamest of them all. The Wiggles is an Australian children's music group formed in Sydney in 1991. It was all about bright colors, goofy music and simple choreography, which was a huge success with the toddlers. But somewhere along the lines, when the show started to air, they would bring up the idea to mask them as puppets. The Wiggle Puppets are puppets modeled after the Wiggle characters. Shocking, I know. They have high-pitched voices, much like Alvin and the Chipmunks. The problem was that these puppets had giant heads, frozen facial expressions, and dead glassy eyes. They would move awkwardly, their mouths flapping off sync to the voices and their limbs jerking in very weird mechanical ways. If you were a kid expecting to see real Wiggles, then suddenly these puppets clones appeared. I mean, there is a reason why they only aired it for one season, with the studio leaving them behind in the abyss they crawl out of. Happy Tree Friends. Let me ask you something. Were you disgusted by the show, or did you love it? I'm pretty sure many of us still remember Happy Tree Friends and how absolutely gross they were. But if somehow you missed it, at first glance it looked like the cutest kids show ever. Pastel colors, big-eyed animal mascots and a cheerful ukulele theme song. But this was all a trap. Created in 1999 by Mondo Media, the show exploded in popularity during the early 2000s, thanks to flash animation sites like Newgrounds. It was one of the first viral web cartoons. What made Happy Tree Friends iconic and honestly kind of traumatic was the contrast. Adorable little forest animals dying in the most horrific, gory and brutal ways imaginable. It became so popular that it even aired on TV, spawned plushies, merch and even a mobile game. But for most of us, the first time we ever saw this was probably on a school computer. The show simply didn't have any limits. The violence was intense, graphic and never censored. Limbs were torn off, eyeballs popped like grapes, and brains spilled across the screen, all while upbeat happy music played in the background. Every single episode ended in a gruesome death. The contrast between the childlike animation and the brutal carnage made it feel like something forbidden, like a cartoon you were never supposed to see. In some way you can describe it like South Park, which had these kids who would often do adult things. And by the way, South Park is like 10 times better than Family Guy. Let's go to the next entry. Quiznos Sponge Monkeys. I feel like this commercial is completely cursed, but it was nothing more than an American sandwich chain called Quiznos, who wanted to stand out for the competition back in 2004, and they definitely did. So they decided to hire an animation team led by Joel Witchell, who is known for creating surreal things. The animation he created was these crudely animated, wide-eyed creatures with weird, high-pitched yet raw voices, soon dubbed Sponge Monkeys. The commercial featured these things singing with human mouths. We love the subs cause they are so good to us. They wanted to appeal to a younger, internet-based crowd. But somehow they ended up only traumatizing them. Because it scared kids and confused adults, this real type of humor didn't have a good impact on the sales, and they were quickly pulled after just few months. And this commercial was pulled just after few months of airing. But still, I heard the honey mustard sandwich was awesome back in the day. Drug PSAs. Drug PSA weren't shown in my region, but this didn't stop me from researching them, and from what I have figured out, they were these intense commercials made for teens, designed to scare them and show how dangerous illegal substances could be.
And if you do drugs, you go to hell before you die. Please.
And while the message had good intentions, the delivery left a lot to be desired. There were many different ads over the years, but the one who stood out would be Number 1. The Deflated Girl. It starts with a girl on a couch, completely deflated like a balloon with all the air out. Her friend looks at the camera and says this is what she likes when she's on weed, and it's incredibly unwavering to watch. And the second I want to mention is the teenager who gets confronted by her dog, who starts to talk about her weed habit, disappointed like a concerned parent. And honestly, the only real takeaway here is what kind of weed she was smoking to talk to her dog.
You're not the same when you smoke, and I miss my friend.
What made these PSAs so disturbing wasn't the message, it was the tone. The acting was stiff, the setting was sterile, it had an uncanny vibe to it, and it felt more unsettling than helpful. And they date back to the 80s if I'm correct, and these ads aired constantly between cartoons, movies, even during daytime. Imagine being a 7-year-old watching Hey Arnold and suddenly being hit with a deflated girl or a guilt-tripping dog. Not cool. Head On. Somehow I think that this pain reliever caused more headaches than it cured. Back in the mid-2000s, we saw one of the most bizarre and famous TV ads pop on the air, simply telling you, Head On, apply directly to your forehead. The Head On ad was about a girl who applies something like a glue stick on her head. That's why it's called Head On, but the commercial itself felt like it was made by AI. No explanation, just the same phrase told over and over again. This wasn't directly scary to leave a scar. The ad didn't have no pricings, no explanations, and just a woman with a blank stare rubbing her head with a glue stick. It almost felt like the ad wants to hypnotize you. Some kids were even convinced it was part of a brainwashing experiment.
Apply directly to the forehead.
Whatever.
Don't cop an attitude, slut. I said apply Head On directly to your goddamn forehead.
Okay.
Chain letters. Back then, adults ignored them, but for us kids wandering the early internet, they were terrifying. I take that back. If the chainmails were about religion, then your far relative would bombard you with them, and if you ignore them, you will burn in hell.
You're gonna burn in hell!
They usually start with a creepy story about someone who went missing or died under mysterious circumstances. You read the whole thing and getting sucked into the story, and the end would go like this. If you don't share this message, the same thing would happen to you. But the most infamous one I think was about Carmen Winstead. Supposedly this girl was pushed into the sewers by bullies. The ghost was said to hunt anyone who didn't repost the story. And all of these stories ended up in that way. And that's why we share them. Not because we believed 100%, but because, what if? These chain letters were everywhere. YouTube comments, Facebook walls, even MySpace. And if you were extra edgy, you had a profile on thisis50.com. Does even anyone remember that site? It didn't matter where you saw it. If a ghost girl threatened to scratch your eyes out unless you reposted her story, then you reposted the story. And speaking of chances, and if you don't subscribe right now, a ghost girl will appear and... Herobrine. I know this entry is more about the late 2000s, but somehow as iconic Herobrine was, I think we can't miss him on the list. After all, Minecraft was released on 17 May 2009. I don't want to remind you how time flies at the speed of light, but I want to remind you of those good old Minecraft maps you first stepped into, and the time you built your first very own dirt cottage. And while researching recipes online, you stumbled upon a screenshot that was shared around 2010, where a user claimed to have seen a strange figure in their game. He looked like Steve, but with glowing white eyes and a deadly stare, the kind that made it feel like he would hunt you for the rest of your days. The post sparked a wildfire of creepypasta stories, fake sightseeings, and Photoshop screenshots, all claiming that Herobrine was watching players from the shadows, building strange structures and even corrupting worlds. And he wasn't just some random skin either, he was supposedly the ghost of Notch's brother trapped inside the code. Spoiler, Notch never had a brother, but that didn't matter. What made it worse that Mojang kept adding fuel to the fire. For a while, every official Minecraft update would include a patch note with Herobrine added or Herobrine removed, which only made the legend stronger. Xenomorphs. Xenomorph is a series that managed to terrify a whole generation of elementary kids, but like many entries on the list, not on purpose. Xenomorphs was a science fiction book series written by K.A. Applegate and published between 1996 and 2001. The story follows a group of teenagers who gain the power to morph into animals to fight a secret alien invasion. With over 50 plus books in the main release, they have been quite popular. The problem was that every book featured a 5-stage transformation of a kid turning into an animal, and it was never smooth or magical. It started quite normal, but by the step 3, their limbs were contracting, faces elongated, skin turning into feathers or scales, and eyes bulging out. It was literal body horror for elementary kids. Lavender Town. Pokemon Red and Blue was released in 1996 in Japan and hit North America and Europe between 1998 and 1996, so technically yes, it was the late 90s and it should be on that list. And now when I think about it, we could make a 90s childhood trauma list. What do you think? But by now, Pokemon is one of the most iconic franchises on Earth. With anime, games, movies, merchandise, whatever you name it, there is something with Pokemon on it. But let's rewind to the original games. The very first ones. You were just a kid, catching creatures, battling gym leaders, trying to become a champion like your dad, who abandoned you. As you wander around, you will eventually reach Lavender Town. It was nothing like the rest of the game. Lavender Town was bleak, quiet, full of graves, and it had a literal Pokemon cemetery tower where trainers mourned their dead companions, and there were even ghost-type Pokemons wandering around that couldn't be caught or seen anywhere else. The real trauma came from the music, a high-pitched, eerie theme that felt off. There was even an urban legend surrounding Lavender Town syndrome. According to the story, the original Japanese version had some frequencies so disturbing that they allegedly caused children to fall ill or worse. The myth claimed that Nintendo quietly patched the game after reports of nausea, headaches, nightmares, and even, like I said, worse, just by hearing the original theme. But the way how the story spread online, with various versions of this song being remixed, fan theories, and obscure ROM hack versions of the game like Pokemon Black. That's why it's on this iceberg. Even if it started in the 90s, the legend was born in the early 2000s internet, and it messed us up just so much. George Lopez. Picture this, you fall asleep on the couch, Cartoon Network running still in the background, maybe a rerun of Ed, Ed and Eddie. But a strange noise wakes you up at 2 AM, something loud, and on your screen is George Lopez flying through mid-air in slow motion with a haunting bass line that absolutely violates your ears. This show was originally aired between 2002 and ran until 2007, and it became a late-night rerun staple on Nick and Nick and TBS, and I was left stunned how many people were shocked by waking up by this. You can tell me more about this, because I did have the luck to not be waking up by this. Squidward losing his toenail. I know we could make an entire iceberg just about SpongeBob, and don't worry my divers, we will, just be patient. There are plenty of weird and disturbing stuff hidden in this show worth diving in. But for now, let's talk about the episode that stuck with a lot of people, with a scene that somehow felt too real. Back in 2008, during season 6, SpongeBob aired the episode called House Fancy. The plot was about Squidward finding out that his rich, snobby rival Squilliam is getting featured on TV showcasing his fancy house in Bikini Bottom. Naturally, Squidward freaks out and calls SpongeBob to help him to redecorate his place. And that's where things go south. The episode takes a hard turn when Squidward tries to, move his sofa, and slams his foot into it. And then we got one of the most unexpected gruesome moments ever aired on kids cartoon. As SpongeBob mounts the sofa, normal cartoons will look away, but in this case the camera zooms in, and you will see Squidward's face in pure agony, and then SpongeBob rips his toenail clean off with a very squishy sound. So yeah, thanks for that, Nickelodeon. 1000 Ways to Die. 1000 Ways to Die aired on Spike TV from 2008 to 2012, and while it was marked as dark comedy, it honestly felt like a never-ending highlight reel of worst-case scenarios. The show played out like one of those fake documentary-style videos, complete with dramatic reenactments, sarcastic voiceovers, and in ridiculous ways people died. These deaths were widely exaggerated, sometimes based on urban legends, and always pushed to the extreme. Was the show cheesy? Absolutely. Over-the-top acting? Yeah, but that was the charm of the show. We are talking about people butts exploding, others were crushed by vending machines, and some were bitten by snakes or run over by semi-trucks. There were no limits here. That if you were a bit too young watching it, good luck breathing without overthinking, because somehow everything became a death trap. The X-Files theme. The X-Files is an iconic show that doesn't need a long introduction. It aired from 1993 to 2002, with a few revivals later on. While it technically started in the 90s, its influence heavily bled in the early 2000s. As a kid who loved staying up late, I would overwatch this show. So I think it's fair we squeeze this one in. In short, it followed two FBI agents, Fox Mulder, a believer in aliens and the paranormal, and Danny Scully, a skeptical scientist who was the complete opposite of Fox. As you figure out, they made for a great team. Together, they investigated strange cases about alien abductions, government conspiracies, monster and psychic powers. Well, all that good and interesting stuff you could say. The whole show was incredibly atmospheric, so of course they had to use a theme that would match that mood. The theme song is just a few synth notes and a haunting whistling melody, paired with grainy visuals of UFOs, shadowy figures and creepy government files. Composed by Mark Snow, it's minimal, it's cold and echoey, and I don't think there is a single soul out there who doesn't know this creepy song. And just a quick story, as a kid I loved to play this theme on my mobile phone on late night walks in the dark to prank my friends. Good times. Final Destination. If you didn't know, Final Destination was originally based on an unused script by Jeffrey Reddick, written for the X-Files. The movie franchise managed to scare our entire generation. The first movie came out in 2000 and it went on to spawn 6 films, quickly becoming one of the most recognizable horror franchises of the early 2000s. The entire series was built around one core idea: you can't cheat death, just like in real life. Even if you manage to escape once, it will eventually find you. It's in the most unexpected, elaborate, freakish ways, from plane crashes to exploding grills to death by dentist appointments. The films made you paranoid about everything. But the most horrifying, and probably the most iconic, scene comes from Final Destination 2. It opens up with a brutal highway crash. A logging truck is rolling down the freeway and the chain holding the logs came loose, and the logs started to smash through the cars, even piercing through a car's windshield. It was quick, gruesome and unforgettable. And to this day, if I find myself behind one of these trucks, I am changing lanes immediately. PlayStation 3 Baby Doll. Back in 2006, during the hype for the PlayStation 3, Sony released a series of abstract surreal commercials. And this wouldn't be the first time they would do something like this. Some of you perhaps remember the PlayStation 1 ads.
Forget progress by proxy. Land on your own moon.
The Baby Doll ad Started with a white room with a PlayStation 3 sitting in a corner. Across the PlayStation sits a lifeless, bald plastic baby doll. Suddenly, the doll comes to life. Its eyes flicker, it cries, it laughs, it screams. Suddenly, the PlayStation 3 starts to levitate. I mean, look at it. Now imagine you are 10 and this ad suddenly comes up. PlayStation wanted to make this ad surreal and artsy, so it appears that the PlayStation 3 is out of this world. The only thing that accomplished it was that my soul almost left my body because of this ad. Scary maze game. There is a good chance that this simple little maze game was recommended to you by a very good friend. At first it looked like a basic puzzle game. You guide this small block through a maze, and while playing, you need a full concentration to make it to the end. As you focus harder and harder, your face gets closer to the screen, and then, from nowhere, the girl from Exorcist jumps out screaming at your face. Simple as that. I know many of you probably forgot about this simple prank, but it's a classic. The best part, the game is still online and you can send it to a friend to have a laugh. And oddly enough, this entry connects us perfectly to the next one. But before that, I want to show you one of the funniest videos connected to this little game. Screamers. If you survive the maze game, there is a chance that this friend would again try to scare you, this time with a video called Screamer. These screamers were short quiet clips that lured you into a false sense of security, only to punch you in the face with a loud sound and terrifying image at the end. The K-Cup car commercial is probably one of the most infamous one. It starts off like a beautiful ad for a relaxing countryside drive, calm music, car rolling downhill, nothing suspicious at all. And then suddenly a zombie pops up screaming at you. I still remember how I shared this clip to my friend over infrared on my Sony Ericsson phone. Then there is also the ghost chair video. A grainy room with a chair in the middle. The camera slowly zooms in and once again the girl from Exorcist just jumps at you. They may look silly now, but everyone wanted to prank their friend with a screamer. These videos usually start off calm and claim to be optical illusions. Anything to draw the viewer in before something horrifying jumped out. Flash horror games. Flash games deserve a video on their own for the impact they had on us. They were these incredible, accessible games you will find in your browser. That means now installing wherever you are. Is it in school or by some family member? If you had internet access, you could play them. From endless Metal Slug clones to Stickman games and to all that weird and silly ones. There was something for everyone, including the horror crowd. And some of these games were very well made. Sometimes limitations force people to be creative. Take Ex Mortis from 2004, a blood-soaked point-and-click game that dropped you in a remote cabin filled with satanic symbols, corpses and disturbing voiceovers. If you have been around my channel for a while, you might remember this one. And you can't expect more from a browser game. Another creepy game to stand out is Purgatorium from 2007. The game is a part of a trilogy, just a single room, it's a slow but short game with a plot twist I won't spoil. Sounds like Newgrounds and Albino Black Sheep or Miniclip had entire libraries of hidden horror games to be discovered. What were your favorite ones? Majora's Masks. I know most of you played this one, and it would be a crime to not include it. I never played Majora's Mask. The only Zelda game I've beaten is Breath of the Wild. That's why I started to think about streaming Majora's Mask once, but it didn't happen somehow. It's considered one of the darkest games Nintendo ever made, especially on the N64. While Ocarina of Time may be the better game mechanically, Majora's Mask took a much darker turn. It was rushed in development and reused assets, but it still managed to create something uniquely eerie. You're trapped in a 3-day loop, trying to stop a creepy, looming moon with a face from crashing into the world. As the time resets, you're watching NPC fall deeper in despair, experiencing grief, denial, fear over and over again. You can help them, but it never lasts. Over time, this game became a cult classic because of its emotional, heavy atmosphere. The dawn is your enemy. If Nickelodeon was weird, Adult Swim leaned more into the unhinged side of things. Back in the early 2000s, Adult Swim was the perfect place for edgy cartoons like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, The Boondocks and Robot Chicken. Especially during those weird in-between commercial breaks, you might encounter a bumper that left you speechless. A black and white screen with a face that looks in distress, a creepy droning ambient sound, and 5 simple words. The dawn is your enemy. Just pure liminal dread. The static image, the unsettling audio, it felt like you stumbled upon something forbidden, like the TV was trying to tell you, you shouldn't be here. Ghost videos. Early YouTube was an entirely different platform from what we have today. It was truly about you. Random moments from people's life, shared for the world to see. Niche communities were just beginning to form, and it felt refreshing to connect with like-minded people over weird, obscure interests over the internet. So that's why I'd like to take this moment to kindly ask you to subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed content like this. Also, any type of engagement would help me a lot. Thank you. Now, even back then, there was no shortage of creepy content floating around the platform. But there was a special type of videos going viral, and that's the scary ghost videos. Grainy, low-resolution clips, often re-uploaded from obscure websites or passed around through email chains. And somehow they always had the most generic title out there, like "Real Ghost Caught on Camera." If you were like me, you loved them. Sure, some of them were fake, but that's what the charm is about. Looking at them and figuring out which one were fake and which not. One popular that comes to mind was Japanese girl in the mirror. In the video, the girl sits in front of a mirror brushing her hair, then she turns around, but the reflection, it stays, just staring forward. It was subtle but deeply unsettling. Another popular subgenre at the time was also demons caught on tape, and there were dozens of these. One that stood out was simply generically titled "Real Demon Caught on Camera", and this video was very well made for its time. It hit differently back then, before we had access to various editing softwares, and Windows Movie Maker was the standard. It felt like it might be real. And looking back now, I think these videos laid the groundwork for what we can now call the analog horror genre on YouTube. Creepypastas. Besides scary flash games and ghost videos, there were some things that linger on the web waiting to be read by you. Creepypastas. These were urban legends of the digital era, spooky copy-paste horror stories that spread like wildfire. The first sites that hosted these stories were 4chan, Something Awful, and later creepypasta.com. They gained popularity in the 2010s, but it started in the early 2000s. While writing these stories, people would often pay attention to details when it comes on expanding on existing media. The most popular example would be Ben Drowned. The Haunted Majora's Mask cartridge that talked to you. The cartridge would say things like, "You met a terrible fate, haven't you?" over and over again. Music played backwards. What started as a well-written copypasta evolved into full playable ARGs, custom videos, game mods, and coded messages. And while talking about creepypastas, we can't skip Jeff the Killer. You've seen this around, the bleached white smiling face that popped out in every scary video on YouTube. The story is about a teenager named Jeff, who after being bullied and disfigured in a violent accident becomes mentally unstable. Over time, Jeff's appearance is marked by pale skin and a permanent smile carved into his face and lidless eyes. He ultimately kills his own family and becomes a serial killer. Oh, I remembered one more, the Russian sleep experiment. The story goes like this. In the 1940s, Soviet researchers sealed 5 prisoners in a chamber. keeping them awake using experimental gas. First posted in 2010, it was often shared with a grainy black and white photo of a mutilated man with a haunting smile. Over time, they would stop talking and start screaming, even ripping out their flesh. By the end, they were fully insane, carving out their own organs just to end it all, and would whisper things like, "We are the madness that lurks within you." I thought this was generally real because of the picture. Slenderman. I felt like Slenderman deserved a whole entry. Even if it was created in the late 2000s, the legacy it spawned was immense. It was first created in 2009 and was part of the Photoshop contest on the Something Awful's forums. The challenge was to take ordinary photos and make them paranormal. A user named Victor Surge submitted 2 eerie black and white images of kids playing at a park, with a tall, faceless figure lurking in the background. He added a chilling caption implying that the children mysteriously disappeared shortly after the photos were taken. And just like that, Slenderman was born, and the internet did the rest. Almost overnight, he became an urban legend. A tall, thin figure in a black suit with no face, pale skin and unnaturally long limbs that could stretch like tentacles. He could stalk you from the woods or teleport into your room. The more you read into it, the deeper the rabbit hole goes. Slenderman's story exploded across Creepypasta Wiki, YouTube and DeviantArt. He inspired games like Slenderman The 8 Pages, YouTube series like Marble Hornets, but there is a dark twist to this story. As in 2014, 2 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin lured their friend into the woods and their friends 90 times with a knife, claiming they did it for Slenderman to appease him and join his realm. Miraculously, the victim survived. Slenderman was a dark story which was also linked to a very horrible event. Salad Fingers. You know this was coming. Created by David Firth, Salad Fingers follows the story of a weird looking green figure with long fingers.
The feeling of rust against my salad fingers is almost orgasmic.
Originally uploaded on Newgrounds and later YouTube, it looks like a regular cartoon at first. Minimalist animation, monotone voice and a simple art style. This creature lives alone in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. He speaks in a high-pitched voice and the show has often eerie ambient music. Also, the fact you don't know if the story is real or just set in his head makes it even more surreal, because he would often have bizarre hallucinations involving flesh, pain and mental decay. Everything is off, from the slow pacing and ambient sound design to the cryptic dialogue and surreal decaying visuals. There wasn't anything similar at the time, and over time it gained a cult following. Obey the Walrus. Obey the Walrus was a very odd video if you stumble upon it, and it feels like it was designed especially to haunt the early YouTube generation. The beginning is harmless. It starts with a video game known as Star Fox, and with a battle with the mighty Andros, who then starts to sing a Spanish children's song. But then it suddenly switches to a grainy VHS clip of a mysterious looking figure walking towards the cam, with calmer but eerie music playing in the background. These videos were uploaded in the late 2000s and became a viral hit in the horror circles. Later it was discovered that the actor was a transgender performer and polio survivor, Sandy Crisp. She made a video called The Goddess Bunny, and it was later immorally re-edited with added content, ominous music, unsettling zooms and cryptic titles, all to make it feel like a cursed tape, with rumors saying you get cursed if you watch the whole thing. Or some thought it was part of some crazy internet cult. People didn't know it was an edited video of her performance, so it was passed around like an urban legend. Lost/banned episodes in Kids TV. Let's talk about something strange. Lost episodes from kids show. These stories always follow the same pattern. A children's show like SpongeBob, Arthur, Dora the Explorer, but with one episode that was never meant to be seen. It either aired once or it was leaked online, and its impact could leave you genuinely scared. Also, sometimes animators would do storyboards that were never meant for the public eye, and they were often crudely made. Like that one infamous Rugrats storyboard where their father turns violent, but there are also those ones who crossed the line and ended up banned. But there were also those who crossed the line and ended up banned. From Ren and Stimpy being banned due to Rainy briefly showing a middle finger, to the Pokemon episodes that give kids seizures, to many more. If you had the unfortunate luck to witness one of them, maybe it left a scar on you. Maybe you remember Rocco's Modern Life episode called Leapfrogs, where the neighbor's wife invites Rocco over to do chores and tries to seduce him, which could leave you wondering about the nature and the intent if you were too young. Many examples come to mind. Oftentimes this episode would turn your favorite show into something unsettling, and you probably didn't like them very much after that. I feel fantastic. Tara the Android launched an entire wave of internet investigation into the story behind this uncanny robot puppet. The video shows Tara the Android standing stiffly in a room singing the phrase "I feel fantastic" in a glitchy high-pitched voice while walking awkwardly, turning her head and raising her arms. People online quickly jumped to theories. The most popular was that the owner of this puppet was a serial killer, which would dress the android with the clothes of the victims and would upload these videos as some kind of a trophy. The eerie synth music and robotic tone only made it worse. Eventually it was revealed that Tara was created by inventor John Paragon as a demo for synthetic vocal programming and robotics, but somehow unintentionally he ended up scaring an entire generation of internet users. Hand thing. Have you seen the hand thing? It's barely over a minute long, but if you have seen it, you know why it stuck with you. It's hard to describe what's going on in this or the other videos made by this particular creator. You were looking at this weird looking guy doing some hand gestures with no real context, and it spawned multiple videos over time.
What is it?
The video would start with Shine standing in front of a house in a cheap wig, twitching and repeating "I do the hand thing" while rapidly slapping her mannequin hands together. The VHS quality, the distortion, random cuts, people thought that these videos were of a guy who was simply mentally deteriorating and losing touch with reality. They were just too cryptic to make any sense, and it deeply tapped into psychological horror because of its nature. Over time it was revealed that this was just an art project to make people uncomfortable, and well, he succeeded at that. Accidental live leak. Let's end this iceberg with the deepest and most disturbing entry, one that goes beyond fiction, lost media or creepy animations, and into something real. If you were on the internet during the 2000s, there are very high chances that you stumble on sites like LiveLeak, Rotten.com and some unmoderated forums. You didn't mean to find them, but sometimes it was just a link someone sent you over MSN, oftentimes mislabeled. But then suddenly you find yourself watching something you cannot see. People in car crashes, real beheadings and much worse, recorded by a bunch of weird people. And just like that, you were dragged into real horrors of the world with no warning. These videos didn't use soundtracks, special effects or jump scares. They didn't need to. They were disturbing because they were real. And if you stayed online for long enough, you maybe also become desensitized and went on a dark path you wished you had never gone. Or maybe like me, you just wondered who was behind these cameras and why people are watching this kind of content. That's exactly why I made a video about the gore community. It's a deep dive into one of the darkest internet subcultures. The link is in the description, but if you want to check out more icebergs, the link of my playlist is also there. This custom playlist features over 20 icebergs that I made in the last few years, from games, music, to many other obscure topics. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this, and I also hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope I will see you in the next one. That's all from me now, and until the next deep dive, stay safe.
Paul?